Thursday. What a day it is to be doing Thoughtful Thursday. Today is the first day of the second national lockdown. Restrictions about who we see, where we go, what we do. It's bonfire night and there are no veil fireworks. Whatever the rights and wrongs of that decision, don't we hate it when restrictions are put on what we want to do and where we want to go? Isn't it great when restrictions are lifted? I'm already looking forward to that day. It's like driving a new car on a 20-mile-an-hour limit and getting to the motorway and being able to put your foot down a bit. Our son has just gone to university for the first time, and he's loving the fact that the parental Cocoa Pops restrictions have been lifted. They're no longer limited to school holidays. He could choose to eat Cocoa Pops every single day. What freedom! The Bible has a lot to say about freedom. The prophet Isaiah writes these words, and you can find them in Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1 and 2. It says this: "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn." When Isaiah wrote those words, it wasn't entirely clear who was speaking them. And who is it who has good news for the poor, who cares for the brokenhearted, who frees captives, who takes people from darkness to light and comforts the mourning? We could do with somebody like that in 2020. Several hundred years after those words were written, someone stood up in a synagogue and read those words out. Then he sat down and claimed that those words were all about him. Now that is quite a claim, but it's a claim made by Jesus. You can read it in Luke chapter 4 verse 18. And Jesus goes on to back up that claim by the things that he does and the things that he says. He spends time with the needy and despised. He loves them and provides for them. He defeats evil, he heals sickness, he controls nature, he comforts those who are distraught because of the death of people that they love. He is the light of a very dark world. Jesus was kind and did wonderful things, but they're not even the best thing that Jesus did. The words that I read included the line, "to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God." Now, the day of God's vengeance doesn't really feel like it should fit in with everything else that's said, but it's referring to the day when Jesus dies. God judges the evil and injustice of this world. He defeats sin and death, and the judgment doesn't fall on sinful people, but on Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. Our enemies, sin and death, are defeated at the cross. It really is the time of the Lord's favour. For the Christian entering lockdown, remember, we are freer than we can really grasp. Free from the pressure of needing to prove our worth. Free from the impossible task of earning God's favour. Free from the power of sin. It no longer has control. It is no longer inevitable that we will fall into temptation. Free to please God in whatever our situation may be. Free from the power of sin and death. Free to live in a relationship with a sovereign God who is still seated on the throne. Free to approach God. The restrictions are lifted. We can be honest with him, cry out to him, share our fears and frustrations with him. He invites us to do that. Because the Lord's anointed has come and broken all restrictions on our access to God. He proclaims good news to the poor. He binds up the brokenhearted. He proclaims freedom to the captives and release from the darkness for prisoners. He proclaims the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God. He comforts all who mourn. Have a good Thursday.